Hello and welcome to another episode of the Music Manor. I'm Monty, and as a matter of fact, did you know that the Grammy Award that they give out, is actually made from a substance called gramium, gramium, which is a proprietary zinc alloy, which is then cast and plated with 24 karat gold. But they actually make Grammys out of something called gramium. I had no idea that was a real thing. And maybe I'll have to win one day and we can actually break it down and see what it's really. That's I had no idea about that. That's crazy. Okay, back with another episode of the Music Manor, guys. It's good to be here. Thank you for joining. And today I wanted to talk about something that a lot of people have kind of come up to me and wanted my input on and see what I think about this and that. I'm going to go back a little bit first and just talk about the development of technology in music, and that can be for a lot of things, but I'm kind of gonna keep it toward just how we consume music, if you will, because in music there's a lot of different people went from playing upright pianos, grand pianos. Now you got a synth that can play 85 pianos in one thing off of off a computer, into the whole lot of things. But I'm just talking primarily about how we consume music. So when I say that, of course, if you're old school, the first you go way back to records or um, actually what I talked about, Grammys is a gramophone. If I'm let me see, gramophones were like way back, kind of those things you crank, people would crank and play music way back in the day. um yeah, and then we got to records, and then so you had a record and a record player, but we still have those around. But then if the record had a scratch on it, it would mess up, and you had to be very careful how you kept the records. People even had 8 tracks. I don't know which came first, 8 tracks or records, but 8 tracks. I mean, barely remember an 8 track. My father had like an 8 track of like Andre Crouch, I believe. It was like an Andre Crouch 8 track. It was this big. He used to have his car. I think this is in this black car he used to have, and this huge, big, thick 8 track. And then eventually we went to cassettes. Cassettes were really big, and the thing about cassettes was that was the first time we had portable music, because you didn't have to just have the cassette in your car or the 8 track, or like you weren't portable with records. But cassettes changed the game, because you had boom boxes, these big boom boxes that you had, and then I thought I had a boom box around there somewhere. I don't know. And then you had like, okay, boombox. Check out Radio Raheem, Do the Right Thing, boombox like that. These guys had these monster stereo things in the boom boxes. You put the cassette in, it'd be banging. You could put it in your car, but then also one of the first ones. I don't know if they were the very first ones, but one of the first ones, the Sony Walkman. It changed everything, because you could be portable with music, and you didn't have to be in your car. You didn't have to have a big boom box, and boom boxes was heavy, and you could just put the cassette in and listen. And fast forward, rewind. Come on, like, couldn't really fast forward, rewind on a record. You know what I'm saying? But cassettes changed everything, so you could kind of speed past all that. Them cassettes, you could record stuff off the radio. People used to try to be recording things off the radio. That was a huge advancement, was cassettes. And then the only problem is you had to be careful, because the tape in the cassette kind of sometimes get messed up, get tangled up. You have to take the pencil, put it within the cassette, and kind of wind it back if the player ate it up. You know what I'm saying? But that still, you put up with it, because to have cassettes was. I just remember having a Walkman, and just the world was in my hand. It seemed like then, like, oh my gosh. And the thing is, you only had one. They only hold one cassette. It's not like you had a Walkman could hold one cassette and then 6 on the side. But you was just cool with that. You know what I'm saying? and you didn't really portably, you didn't like walk around with a bunch of cassettes. You just had that cassette that day, and that's what you was rocking with all day, until you got back home. So whatever you listen to, and then you could, again, I can't stress this enough, just to be able in your hand to rewind back the song you just heard, like run it back. It was outstanding. What a time. And then we went to CDs. CDs were like mini record players, but better quality for sound for sure. The only problem is they would skip sometimes. So you had to get a good CD player. So then they went to every car. The cassette. You used to have cassettes and CD players in cars. If you was really balling, you had a 2-in-1 joint there. You had the Discman. So the Walkman was for the cassettes. The Discman was for the CDs, compact discs. Again, all electronic and cool and all this stuff. I had a couple of those. And then what really was big time is if you had a car, or even a even in your house, it's your stereo system. Because remember, now at the house, you might have had a cassette player, you might have had a record player. But then when the CDs came out, they started getting real fancy, and these CD players in the cars and in your homes could hold multiple CDs at once. So you could have like a 6-disc CD player. I had a 6-disc. I think I had a Chevy Tahoe. I'm pretty sure that was cassette and like 6 discs, which is now, it's like I said, instead of walking around, now the Discman's only still held 1, but still like driving around. Now I got 6 in there in the chamber, or you at the house and you can hit you had a remote control and you could hit something, boop, boop, and then it would go to the next CD. I know it sounds really rudimentary, young folks, but I'm telling you, this was game changing, right? Like, wow, we really doing junk big out here, man. So we have that. You got these CDs now, and CDs were great. Like, I remember just you would get double CDs. I talked about on the countdown, like Fred Hammond's Spirit Pages of Life, double CD. It's just like, oh my goodness. And then you'd have, all your music. And then even with the 6 disc, not everybody has 6 discs in their car. Then we started getting these CD folders, which I had one of those. Probably had 2 of those. And you had this little fold out book where you kept all your CDs, because now you can kind of listen to what you feel like listening. It's still a little cumbersome. You got to take the CD out, take the old one out, put that one in, put it in the rotation, whatever. But now you will keep it in the car, keep most of your CDs there, because so much people commuting so much more, and listen to whatever you want to listen to there. But or you have, sometimes they would have them on the visor where you had a CD, a little CD folder, a little jacket attached to the visor, and had like 8, 9 CDs. I had all this stuff. And then of course at home you had your CD towers, and I had a bunch of CD towers where you literally just had like this little, it would be like this high, and you just had slots to keep your CDs in. I had like 3 or 4 of those too. You know what I'm saying? And so that was life. And then let me get the date right, because when the internet comes out, around like 95 is when the internet first comes out, right? 95, 96. People have no idea what it is, the capabilities of it. Nobody could see the possibility. Well, maybe Bill Gates did, I don't know, but hardly anybody knows what this is really going to be. And one of the big game changers for the internet in general, what changed the game was the music industry. And what I mean by that is how we consume music. And what I mean by that is Napster. Napster comes out, and to sum up what could be its own separate show, and we might do a separate show about that at some point, Napster was like, hey, I can just put all these songs in one like hard drive for you. You know what I'm saying? I can just take all these artists. Not, because on a CD, you only got one artist, unless it's a compilation. 12, 15 tracks, 20 at most. Napster said, you give me a flash drive or something, I'll put 100 artists on there and 300 albums. And it was like, what? And the crazy thing was, initially and for a while, Napster was like, and I'll do that bad boy for free. Where this is the wild, wild west. I'm telling y'all, you was literally down LimeWire. There was a whole bunch of places you could start doing this. Napster wasn't the only one. Free music and as much as you can download. Like what? What is this internet thing now? And so now, man, it is chaos because and then these we went from Walkman to Discman, and then they would have a Walkman or Discman and an MP3 player also, because now you're playing MP3s that are music files. So now we're getting into this like, hold on, I'm going from listening to one record at my house on a record player, then tapes in the car, CDs in the car, Walkman, Discman, and now I have not just one artist, I got all these artists I can listen to, right? Now, of course, the music industry started to push back, like, hold on, because artists are like, this ain't right. People are getting music, and it wasn't right. People are pirating music for free that I worked on, and I'm not getting paid for it, Sorry if I ain't been in focus. But, and they're right. They were 100% right, but it was just such a free-for-all. And this is when I didn't have MySpace. By the time it came out, it was so big, I just couldn't really understand how to make a page. So a lot of people were putting like music on their MySpace pages, and they were doing, you would go on somebody's page and music would start playing, and so it's like Instagram kind of, but like when you go to your Instagram profile, not your picture, and just there's this music just coming out. People was like pirating music from that. And so one of the first acts, there's this rock group named Metallica. And I believe Metallica, which is one of the greatest selling rock groups of all time, they were the first ones to really push back on Napster and this whole free music thing. Let me put this in there real quick. Which artist fought Napster? Yeah, Metallica. Right. Okay, I had that right. Metallica was like, hold on, this file sharing thing. So Napster came out in 99. So again, we got about 3 good solid years with this internet thing, and we're kind of like whatever Napster comes out in 99. And in 2000, Metallica sues like, hold on, what we doing, fam? Like, this ain't right. And so then, we get into like a couple years fighting with that, and then they're shutting down sites and all that. But the cat is kind of out of the bag by then. And this whole like, people really rocking with music like that. And so then, I gotta look all this stuff up real quick on the fly. Then that's in 2000. In 2001, iTunes comes out. All right. Yeah, so 2001 iTunes comes out, tied with the iPod, okay? And the iPod is now saying, forget the CDs, forget the tapes, just use this little thing right here. Because still, CD players are a little bulky. Like I said, they would skip. Cassette players, even though they weren't as bulky, were still, a lot. This little iPod thing, man, I wish I still had an iPod. This little thing here, so like this is my phone. The iPod is about this big when they first came out. It's like half the size of my phone. And people couldn't even understand, like, you get in music, all that music in there? And iTunes was like, yeah, let's set this up, and so we can monetize it ourselves. Apple did, and they were one of the first ones to do it. And this was tied in with the technology they were making on different kind of iPods. And you had, iPods first started out, even the little nano, or I don't know when nanos came out, but like at first you could only see like a little bit of screen, and then they got to be bigger screens. And then you just got big iPod video screens, which was crazy. iPod video changed the game too, because that's when you really were able to look at videos, music videos, TV shows, and on this little thing. And now this is before phones still. We still had to flip phones, but it's like, hold on, this is starting to catch on. So I'm taking so much time. But anyway, we move ahead, and now iTunes is like, yeah, you can buy as much music as you want. And so the artists, though, we're still in contention with record labels because now, and then a couple years later, YouTube comes out, and so the artists are like, hold on, we better be getting it cut if iTunes, because iTunes was not letting you pirate it, you had to pay for it. But the artists are like, yo, we need to get our cut, which is true, which is fair. But the record labels had to fight them. And then even when YouTube came out, artists were like, wait a minute. They weren't getting nothing off of YouTube at first, but they're like, the point is to listen to the music, whether they buy the CD or they're on YouTube. If they listen to YouTube was actually tracking it better. Like I can see on YouTube, my music had 35,000 views. So y'all need to give me something. So they were in contention for that for a while. And then people started getting money. Still not as much as they probably should be getting, but it is what it is. And then we kind of got into where instead of paying, you still had to pay like whatever the CD rate was for these albums on iTunes. But the beauty of it was you could keep them all on one iPod. Then we got to one of the things I really want to talk about, and that is subscription services just for basically all music ever made, which is what Apple Music is. This is what Spotify is. Tidal, there's a couple other ones, but this is where we are now. And Apple Music and Tidal and Spotify and these ones, for me, I know it's like sometimes we don't like the technology, we don't like the change, and I'll get into the AI stuff in a minute, but I can't tell y'all how much I love like Apple Music. I have Apple Music, but Spotify, whichever one I just love the concept because it's like now I can listen to anything I want, just doop, 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 and it comes up. And in the rare occasion that is not on Apple Music for whatever licensing issue, I can just go right to YouTube, and YouTube usually has it too. But I honestly get a little bit of a rush. I honestly do every time I open up like Apple Music, and and how I can just look and find an artist. And then this goes hand in hand with the amazing, hold on, let me look this up too. I'm about to say it, but I don't want to tell you. Hold on a second. I got to bring one person. Yes. And a shout out to the team of Chris Barton, Daraj Murkaji, Philip Engelbrecht, and Avery Wang. Who are these people? These are the people who invented Shazam. Right next to Apple Music and subscribed, streaming music, Shazam is everything for me because I've told y'all before, like in other shows, but I'm the type of person when I walk in the mall, I immediately hear the music. I hear the music before I see the sales, and sometimes I don't know what it is I'm listening to. Like, who is that? And if you don't know Shazam, you hit Shazam, you hit the button, and Shazam listens to the music, and Shazam will tell you what's playing. This, for me, is everything. And Shazam, eventually, Tehcnology, Shazam will link right to your Apple Music or your Spotify, whatever. It is so great. This is the part of technology I will definitely rock with. Thank you to Apple Music, and thank you to Shazam. You have made my life, and you've enriched it so much because I can be in a gym. I might not know who it is, but I like the groove. What is that? Doop. They tell me what it is. It is everything. So in that sense of the word, I'm very much pro, or of the idea of it, I'm very much pro technology for this because and I want everybody to get paid, get your money. Artists get paid. I feel like artists aren't getting paid enough, a big enough cut. So, but yes, like I'm guilty, of course, because back in the day, that CD tower that I made, I converted it all digitally onto my iTunes account. And then what I used to do, some of y'all know, I will hook people up with the music that I, got. Now, see, but it's not, it's not great because the person I gave the music to probably should have bought it themselves, but I did buy them CDs. These were like real CDs. So I paid for it. I just converted it and I would hook up a person or two. But to be able to just in a second bring up music, any kind of music, y'all just don't know. Like if you don't really love it, then it might not mean that much to you. But for me, and then to be somewhere and not know who I'm listening to or not know which artist, I might know the song, but somebody else covered it and I can just Shazam it is, oh my gosh, it's amazing. So I'm saying all that now. Let's get to where we are now. Now, the fact is now we have AI music, and I had some people come up to me and they're like, "Hey, you know, like you can make songs through AI and all this." I'm like, "Yeah, I've been hearing about that." And some like I think what got real popular for a while was telling AI make this Snoop Dogg song into like a church choir, or make the so and so song into a country music song, like take one genre and AI will make it into another with a great voice and all that, and they'll sing it. Here's the thing that I give AI a lot of props for, and that is the production. Like you listen to an AI song, and if you don't know about production and backgrounds and vocals and levels, that was the first thing I was impressed with. A friend of mine, he did some songs. He was like, listen to these songs. And the production blew me away because it really sounded studio quality. And for that to be through AI, I said, that is amazing. That is unbelievable. Now, and even like I said, those parody songs, it's really good. But for me, it's not like the lyrics my friend let me listen to. The lyrics were very rudimentary. It was a gospel song, but it was not really anything. Um, you know, like depending on technology too much, technology can give us like I like the technology that's giving me access to the music, but then telling technology and AI to create the music for us, that's a little slippery slope. Because I think AI can learn us and be as much like us as possible, but it's still not authentic. Like I said, those lyrics that I heard were not really very much to say. There's a song, "He is jealous for me, love like a hurricane, I am a tree." Like, come on, fam. A guy had to really the experience that he's went through to write that. I don't feel like AI will ever truly be able to replicate that. That's not to say there's not a market for AI though. What people call rap now, 25 years ago, wouldn't have nobody listened to. And a lot of people from 25 years ago today hate that stuff that they call rap, but there's a market for it. And I'm not here to argue whether there should or shouldn't be a market for it. I'm just saying there is one. So that's what art is. It's very subjective. What one person wouldn't pay $20 for a painting for, another person to pay 20,000 for, it's art. And so AI music is not really for me because I'm a creator with music. And writing and composing and things like that. But I recognize some people might rock with it. And it's not for me to really, like I said, I would, of course, advocate for the original music made by human beings. I just don't feel like, because here's the thing. Somebody had AI do like a gangster rap, and the AI artists, they got real pages for these artists that are fake AI artists, but they're like rap artists and people follow them. And the AI was rapping like, yeah, coming from the struggle. And somebody's like, I'm sorry, what struggle, AI? You're not even real. What do you mean the struggle? Now, even the real guy rapping about that might not have been a struggle, but it's more believable because he's a person. But when AI is singing, Lord, you brought me through so many things. No, he didn't. No, AI, the Lord didn't bring you through nothing because you're AI. Again, it is got its place. It's entertaining, but it's not truly real. So my embracing of technology, it goes so far. And maybe I'm old school. I'm sure there's a generation coming up that's got no problem with the AI. I'm not even really here to hate on it. I'm just giving my spin on where you gotta, because I just don't know if the authenticity will allow me to ever let myself go. Again, the production, the music is great. It is top tier, but I just don't think it'll really, I don't know. Again, maybe young folks, because the stuff they listen to now, I sure wouldn't rock with, but it is what it is. So that is my brief technology history tied in with AI a little bit. Guys, this is the Music Manor. I can't even express the video breakdown that is coming. It is just, I'm so excited. That'll be later in the week for video breakdown. Please tune in for that one. It is just I don't even want to say no more of it. But guys, I appreciate you hanging out with me. Here's what I want you to do: be blessed, stay sharp,